But first, Toronto-born singer-songwriter-musician Marlon Chaplin had just released his EP called Wanderer by Trade, and it's a brilliant one. It was recorded live off the floor with some of Toronto's best-loved musicians, including members of Zeus and the Lemon Bucket Orchestra. He's got a slew of tour dates by himself as a solo artist and with the full band. You can go to marlonchaplin.com for all the details, and Marlon joins me in the studio now. Hey, man, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So, I have to admit, I knew a little bit about you, and then when I listened to the EP, when the first song "In Stars" came up, it felt like there was a giant party in my room. It felt like I was surrounded by the very best music of the 50s and 60s and 70s. That it sounded like a Stones party was happening. Why? Tell me about the impetus to actually go live off the floor when most musicians would be like, oh, I have every piece of technology available to me to maybe mask any mistakes.
Well, I think it's interesting that you mentioned the Stones because Beggar's Banquet was a touchstone for that record.
Yeah.
I loved the looseness, the off-the-floor feel. I just think when you have too many options, sometimes it can reduce creativity.
Right.
So, you know.
How so? Like,
well,
what do you mean?
You're sitting behind a board and you have Pro Tools opened and you have infinite tracks to work with.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to know when to say when.
Does that curiosity, did that ever feed into you, or were you always like, I'm a back to basics kind of a guy?
No, I'm not exclusive to either way of thinking, any manifesto. But I did want to do a record that honored that side of me and that love that I have for records like, White Blood Cells by the White Stripes, or like those Stones records from the late 60s, early 70s period. And I realized that I'd been playing in Toronto for a while with musicians that were so adept and had so much chemistry together, kind of like in the Cameron House scene and the Dakota. And I was playing with all these amazing musicians, and after I went solo, after I left my band, I realized why not utilize these guys' fantastic musicianship and put them all in a room together, do something sort of spontaneous. And part of it was I didn't want to think about it too much either. I didn't want to overthink it.
Right.
I just did 2 singles recently where it was very thought out. And the musicians were really just me, the co-producer, and Cynthia, who plays with me. That was a different vibe. But for Wanderer by Trade, I just kind of wanted to leave more to chance and relinquish control somewhat. Just let the organic quality of it take over.
Neil Young has a great line where he says that if he starts to overthink things a little bit, it doesn't work for him. And you just have to kind of go with it. And then you've got something like the Stones, who have been playing for, 7 or 8 years before they were even hitting their stride as an early band. They got those hours of practice in, and those records that you bring up with like Beggar's Banquet or Exile, they all sounded to me like that whole era was like you were walking down the hall of a cheesy Holiday Inn, and there's a party going on over here. And so many of the songs, and what reminded me of it was that so many of their songs never had a sharp stop at the end of it. They kind of all just faded out. Like you were just, like it was now walking past the room where Keith and Mick and everybody was. And I get the sense from you that that's what kind of a record it was as well. By hanging out with all those people, it sounded like you knew where a lot of people could go. Yeah,
exactly. It's cinematic in a way.
Yeah. You brought your guitar.
I did.
What are you going to play?
I was going to play my new single, actually.
Okay, what's the single called?
It's called Annabelle Someone.
This is Marlon Chaplin on SiriusXM. You can go to marlonchaplin.com for all the details. This is that Eric Alper Show, Channel 167, Canada Talks.
Annabelle, how many hits can you take? Glue it back before you crack and you break. There's someone waiting for you. Oh, don't ask me who. There's someone at your back. Are they waiting to attack or watch over you? La 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 la. La 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 la. So scrutinize, it's your turn to analyze me. Your little cough, my catastrophic release. There's someone waiting for you, oh, don't ask me who. There's someone for me too. There's someone at your back. Are they waiting to attack or watch over you? Annabelle, oh, Annabelle. A sex come undone, just two people in fun, no win, no lose. All those drugs that you take, no, you don't feel it break or come to lose. Since you were a child, innocent and wild, and it left you too. Who do you want to protect? Next, who will you choose? Annabelle, it's up to you. Annabelle, who will you fool? Yourself or someone new? Annabelle, what will you do? You know I'll always love. La 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 la.
Amazing. Love that.
Thank you.
Marlon Chaplin. What got you? Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
What got you into music in the first place?
My dad and my mom were both rock and rollers. Still
Really?
are. Yeah.
Like musicians?
Yeah, my dad played in a punk band called the Rednecks.
How, like a real, like in the 70s,
Yeah,
80s,
well, yeah,
or 90s? Where, like, when are we talking about?
Throughout the 80s.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, so I grew up listening to cassettes of Tom Waits and the Rolling
Yeah.
Stones. One of my earliest musical memories is a mixtape he made of the Rolling Stones for me.
And what about your mom?
Same kind of thing. Actually, he met my mom because her brother was in his band.
Really?
Yeah. It's a classic rock and roll tale.
So do they have like a lot of photos of them
Yeah.
kind of hanging around?
Totally. There's some
Yeah.
great ones. Yeah. There's a classic black and white one of my dad on stage and my mom on the dance floor. It's very cool.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. They're probably around maybe 24, 25.
Did you pick it up easy?
I did. I started playing drums first.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took to it really naturally.
You know, we were talking before that song about influences.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hang out with a lot of people from the Toronto music scene, and I only mention Toronto only because there's never a shortage of musicians kind of hang around. When do you start developing your own music and your own sound and your own thought process rather than continuing to be influenced by the people around you or the people that you grew up with or somebody like the Stones or even your parents?
Yeah. I think it's hard not to be constantly influenced.
Yeah.
Especially living in a city like Toronto where it's so eclectic, you know.
Yeah.
But to find your own identity, that's a very good question. I've never been asked that. But I think it's just you have to try a bunch of things, you know, before you find yourself.
Yeah.
My voice.
In terms of songwriting or in terms of your voice or lyrics?
I was just going to say my voice, for example, I felt I didn't truly find up until just a couple years ago.
Were you trying to emulate anybody else?
Yeah. I can't think of any one specific example, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you hang out with other musicians, are you, I mean, what is somebody like the guys in Zeus, like what do they teach you without having to like directly teach something?
Well, you know, simplicity is a big thing. Neil Quinn from Zeus played guitar on In Stars, the song you mentioned. He played electric guitar on that. And that was an overdub. Most of the album was done live off the floor, but that was an overdub. and I had this riff,
Yeah.
which in my head was sort of a Jimmy Page kind of thing, right? So it was like, in that octave, in the lowest range you can play on a guitar.
All right.
And I tried dubbing it, and it just didn't fit. It didn't quite work. Then Aaron Como, who engineered the session, he tried it. He's a great musician. He tried it with a slightly different feel, and we just couldn't figure it out. So he's like, well, I'm going to give my friend Neil a ring. Neil came down to the studio,
Yeah.
listened to it, and he did one simple thing that just changed it all. He just took it up an octave. And it was what the song needed. It became, to me, the centerpiece of the song. It cut through. It was colorful, you know. Down here, it was getting all muddled up. So, for example, that's something that I wouldn't have thought of. It's like, okay, you don't necessarily have to change the riff or come up with a whole new part. Just take it up an octave, you know.
I love that about musicians in general, and I don't think I even have that mindset that, you know, you were talking before about just getting back to basics and having way too many options.
Yeah.
The ability to think of a song and then try it in 72 different ways would drive me bananas. And I don't know, other than continuing to go with your gut, or whether or not if a song is actually finished.
Right.
Like if it's done or not.
I don't know if it's ever finished. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You just have to go with your gut.
Right.
You know?
And then if you're going to play live and you're playing with different people all throughout, they're going to bring their own color and their own
That's right.
their own kind of method to it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So now what's your plans? What's your plan for 2017? What do you want to do?
Record a full length.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the track listing sorted out for that.
Yeah.
Tour.
Is there still a use for albums out there?
Oh, man, that's a good question. No, nowhere near as much as it used to be. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are albums still important to you?
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
They are, yeah. The album as an art form is brilliant. I grew up on it. I love it. It's not just a nostalgia thing either. I think there's a real art to an arc of an album from start to finish. And there are people still putting out great albums today.
Yeah.
I mean, Lady Gaga's Art Pop is a contemporary record that I love.
Yeah.
And it flows and moves beautifully. And Queens of the Stone Age, they put out Like Clockwork a couple years ago, which I love.
Yeah.
But someone in my position who doesn't have that kind of notoriety, it's tricky navigating how to put your music out, you know, how people are going to consume it, how they're going to listen to it, how they're going to find it even.
Right.
It seems like it's a singles game now. We've almost gone back to the 50s in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there hasn't been a lot of classic EPs out there.
No.
But I still think that it's still a great taste for people to
Exactly.
say, here's 20 minutes.
That's right.
You don't have to, you know, live with this artist for, you know, 62 minutes
Right.
and stuff. But, you know.
And you know, Wanderer by Trade was an introduction for a lot of people to me. So
Right.
that was an element of the mentality behind
Yeah.
it.
And now you can put in like those really killer, amazing songs like track 6.
That's right.
And just kind of bury it a little bit, but kind of make people work
That's right.
a
The
little bit
deep
harder
cuts.
for it. Yeah. How was the year for you? Like, what did you think was going to happen in relation to, you know, maybe putting out the EP? Like, were you pretty cool with how things went?
Yeah. It couldn't have gone better.
Yeah.
As far as my goals
Yeah.
went, yeah. The idea behind Wanderer by Trade was, like I said, an introduction. I wanted to get the word out. I wanted people to know that I was a solo artist. I was coming from a band called Broken Bricks that I'd been in for 7 years, and we'd got some notoriety in Toronto. So it was important to let people know that I was still doing stuff and expanding and progressing. So I wanted to basically just play more, get the word out, you know, do press, make art, make music videos. I made 4 music videos.
Right. For
the
album.
album. For the album, which I'm thrilled with all 4 of them. It was great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it tough not having that name of a band behind you, like a gang, when you're surrounding yourself with different people?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that it's a little bit more powerful, that it gives you the ability to work with whoever you want to work with. But you miss kind of like that stableness of things?
It's funny. I feel way more stable now than I did back then.
Really?
Yeah. Democracy in a band is a myth, man. It's like a unicorn. It doesn't exist.
I'm getting the feeling like democracy anywhere is a myth.
Maybe.
The brand new EP, Wanderer by Trade, is out now, and you can go to marlonchaplin.com marlonchaplin.com for all the details. That's marlonchaplin.com for all the details. Marlon, thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thank you.
Coming up next, Andy Kim. Time for his annual Christmas show. The co-author of the Archie Sugar Sugar and the sole owner of Rock Me Gently is going to join me in the studio next on That Eric Alper Show, Channel 167, Canada Talks.
If I let you